Okay, hello everyone. Thanks so much for joining again. In this video, I would like to give you a quick overview about what economies of scale versus economies of scope are. I feel students and young professionals, they still mix it up and sometimes it's still a bit unclear what is one, what is the other. In general, economies of scale. Let's start with this. Economy of scale is the cost advantage a company achieves as it increases production volume. Underlying fixed costs are spread across more units, reducing the cost per unit. The key focus is producing more of the same product because you use the underlying fixed cost more efficiently. An example, a car manufacturer builds a factory to produce 100,000 cars a year. The factory costs 100 million to build. Let's assume there are two scenarios. Scenario one, either 50,000 cars are produced or 100,000 cars are produced. If you look at the fixed costs per car, because of the factory, you see if you produce 50,000 car, then the fixed cost per car is the cost of the factory divided by 50k is 2,000 per car. This is a fixed cost component per car. If the company produces 100,000 cars, then you still have the initial factory cost, but you divide the factory cost by 100,000 cars. So your fixed cost per car has decreased. If we look at the financial impact, let's assume our fixed costs, again, 100 million. That is the factory that you need to build, both cases. Variable cost, let's assume it's 10k per car. Total variable cost is your variable cost times the number of car that you produces. In this scenario 50 and in this scenario 100,000. Yeah, so your total variable fixed cost has changed. Then your total cost equals 10k plus 500 million. Sorry, not 10k, 500 million. 500 million here. 500 million plus 100 million. Total variable costs are already, this number already multiplies 50,000 cars times variable cost of 10k per car. So you have 500 million plus the 100 million factory gives you total cost of 600 million. Same here. You have total variable cost of 1 billion plus the 100 million factory cost gives you 1.1 billion. If you then look at, okay, this is a total cost. How many cars am I producing? Because you want to know how the cost is shared and distributed over your production of cars. So you use 600 million over 50,000 and here 1.1 billion over 100,000. And then you can see your total cost, including variable cost and fixed cost per unit is here under the low scale scenario 12k, and here the cost to produce one car is 11k. So you can see that your underlying cost per unit has decreased if you produce more. And the main effect is not because of variable cost. You see the variable cost, they increase proportionally, so you don't have a positive impact, but because your fixed cost, which are not changing in this scenario, will be shared over a higher number of units. Yeah, so this is economies of scale, producing more of the same product. If we look at economies of scope, here we also talk about a cost advantage, but this cost advantage here is achieved when a company produces multiple products using the same resources or capabilities. So here we are talking about diversifying product lines to share cost. Yeah. As an example, let's look at the bakery. This bakery sells bread and decides now to start selling cakes. And we need to think about which product. If the bakery starts selling cars, it doesn't make sense because it can't use the assets they are owning to produce cars. But if we look at, okay, what type of assets and equipment do we use? The bakery already owns the ovens, has a staff, has a distribution network. Adding cakes doesn't require much extra cost, but generates additional revenue. Yeah, so what we assume here is revenue is increasing from 500,000 to 800,000 because we have added cakes. Fixed costs again, our assumption is we can use the resources, the oven equipment that we have. We assume variable cost may have increased because you have additional direct costs that you need for the cakes. Your total cost is then, so the variable cost here is not per unit as in our example before. Our variable cost is total variable cost. And here, because we are selling more products, we are producing more. It's not on a per unit basis. It's total. It's similar to what we have here as total variable cost. This is what we have here as well. So then our total cost is 100,000 plus 300,000 is 400,000, and here 100,000 plus 400 equals 500. And then profit, you have revenue 500 minus 400 gives you 100. 800 minus 500 gives you 300. And then we look at cost per type of unit. Here in this example, we don't talk about units because it's not our example. So what we do is still to be able to compare. We know, okay, the absolute number of profit is higher here, but if we want to compare it, we want to see the cost per $1 of revenue. What is the underlying cost? Here we did it cost per 1 unit. Here we do it a bit differently, cost per $1 of revenue. And if we divide our profit by revenue, then we see our cost per unit is 80 cents and here is 62.5 cents, which again shows that our underlying cost has decreased, similar to our economies of scale. So key takeaways: economies of scale achieved by increasing production of the same product, leading to lower cost per unit. Economies of scope achieved by adding more products or services, leveraging shared resources to reduce overall costs. I hope you found those examples useful. Thanks again for joining. Talk to you later.